There's a certain kind of game that lives in your head rent-free, even decades after you last played it. Not always the biggest or the most well-known, but it's one that leaves a mark. Maybe it was the tone, maybe the art, or maybe it just hit you at exactly the right time in your life. For me, one of those games was Beyond Good and Evil. It was one of those games that didn't look like much on the surface, but if you happened to take it home, it changed you fundamentally. I remember borrowing it from a friend back in the early days of high school, the old switcheroo. I would let my mate borrow one of my games, and in return they'd let me borrow one of theirs. A simple transaction during simpler times. Whether or not we ever saw the respective game again was a mystery, but I digress. The cover of this one wasn't anything particularly special, just a woman with a green headband and a camera. It didn't scream sci-fi conspiracy thriller or hovercraft pirate adventure. I was pretty skeptical, to say the least. My copy of Stubbs the Zombie was on the line here, man. Was it really worth the risk? Even all of that being the case, I'll never regret trying this game out for the first time. Even if it ran at like 2 FPS on my family's old PC as soon as you got out into the open world. There was no big marketing push, no demo kiosks in any shops. I'd never seen anything about this game before, and this was back in like 2010, almost 7 years after it first released. It just sort of appeared. I didn't really know what I was getting into when I first booted it up, but the second that intro cutscene started, I knew this game had something. A vibe, a soul. It was almost like I was watching a childhood movie. That same sense of nostalgia and wonderment was overpowering. It wasn't all too different an experience as watching one of my all-time favourite movies, Treasure Planet, for the first time. A connection made all the more clearer as I progressed further and further into this game's story. It felt like someone had poured themselves into the game and this world. And in a way, someone had done exactly that. Beyond Good and Evil wasn't just another early 2000s action game. It was a passion project, one that tried to tell a story about media manipulation, war propaganda, and resistance. And it somehow did it with anthropomorphic animals, photojournalism, and alien mind parasites. So because of its status as a game that not many of my friends knew about when I was growing up, and even less know about now it seems, I want to talk about how this strange, beautiful little game actually got made, and why its journey to your screen was anything but smooth. This one's for the dreamers, the world builders, and anyone who ever took a screenshot in a game because it just looked that good. Beyond Good and Evil, released in 2003, was the brainchild of Michel Ancel, the same creative genius who gave us Rayman. But where Rayman was all rubber limbs and cartoon absurdity, Ancel wanted to build something deeper. Something political. Something with more emotion. At Ubisoft Montpellier, Ancel and a 30-person team worked for over 3 years to create something bold and heartfelt. In Ancel's own words, the goal was to pack a whole universe onto a single CD. Mountains, planets, towns. The idea was to make the player feel like an explorer. In order to make this dream come to fruition, they built a brand new engine to facilitate it, the Jade engine, designed to support open-ended exploration, cinematic cutscenes, dynamic lighting, and yes, a full-on photo system. It was so powerful and flexible in fact that Ubisoft later used it to build Peter Jackson's King Kong. But development wasn't easy. Internally, the team struggled with direction, both narratively and gameplay-wise. The first playable demo shown at E3 2002 was met with a shrug. Critics and executives didn't see the vision. The genre-bending gameplay confused people. Was it an action game, a stealth game, a sci-fi adventure, a platformer? Even Ancel later admitted the team had to scale the game back just to get it out the door.
I think first thing was the kind of open world and many cities thing. So this, and even the size of the city. I think we were, but it was not too difficult to cut. Just I think at some point, because we are doing a lot of updates with the team, we didn't work too much on things that were not in the final game.
The game's tone was also tricky. Ancel folded in subtle and sometimes not so subtle political commentary. The game was initially conceived as part of a trilogy, imbued with themes inspired by Hayao Miyazaki's visual storytelling, the pre-9/11 media climate and global politics. Ansel even explicitly cited these influences in an interview with Wired. From the earliest press releases, even as far back as 2001, Ubisoft described Beyond Good and Evil as the first chapter in a planned trilogy. Concept art from launch materials hinted at sequels tied to Jade's hidden legacy and global resistance networks. Those whispers were mostly ignored at the time, hidden in fine print in developer diaries. Little did anyone know that the groundwork for Beyond Good and Evil 2 was already laid within the narrative bones of the first game, even if most players would only discover that years later. So yeah, Beyond Good and Evil was a weird, ambitious game made by a team that cared a little too much, during a time when the industry didn't really know what to do with that kind of energy. But in the middle of all that chaos, they made something truly unforgettable. Beyond Good and Evil wasn't aiming for cookie-cutter sci-fi heroics. Jade was intentionally designed as a relatable real person, not a sexy stereotype. According to dev leads, she was loosely based on Ansel's wife. Balanced, quirky, and grounded. The goal was for players to connect with Jade, not objectify her. The emotional rhythm of the game was also intentional. Developers placed quiet moments to convey Jade's growth, guilt, grief, or resolve, sometimes signaled by subtle visual cues like depth of field shifts or soft lighting to match those mood changes. Even the soundtrack shaped visuals. Composer Christoph Eral layered Bulgarian folk vocals, Arabic strings, and industrial tones together. This music helped fundamentally shape level design and architecture, rather than just being slapped on later as an afterthought. But all that ambition, the world building, the hybrid systems, the foundational soundtrack, it needed a story to hold it all together. And that's where Beyond Good and Evil truly sets itself apart. It isn't just a game with lore, it's a rebellion, a mystery, and a deeply personal journey hiding inside a sci-fi action adventure. Fair warning, a lot of what I'll cover from this point on will feature major story spoilers. I highly recommend you check out the game for yourself if you care about experiencing the story. Otherwise, in order to convey my feelings and give this game the retrospective treatment that it deserves, I'll be going pretty in depth with the world building and gameplay mechanics from various parts of the game, even if I'm not covering the story in full detail from start to finish. At first glance, Beyond Good and Evil looks like a quirky sci-fi tale with talking animals in a green-tinted art style. But once you peel it back, even just a little, you start to realize it's actually a game about media control, state violence, and the cost of telling the truth in a world built on lies. You play as Jade, photographer, martial artist, and lighthouse mum. She's not portrayed as some chosen one, at least not yet, and she's also not a soldier that you know of. She's just a woman trying to pay her power bill and take care of a bunch of war orphans in a crumbling lighthouse on a planet called Hillis. Sounds pretty wholesome, right? That is until the Alpha Sections, the planet's military peacekeeping force, start spreading war propaganda 24/7 across the planet. It also just so happens that a mysterious alien threat called the DOMS keeps coincidentally attacking, always right when the Alpha Sections are in need of more public support. Jade soon gets swept up into an underground resistance movement called Iris, who hand her a mission directive and ask her to expose the truth. You infiltrate secret Alpha Sections bases, photograph experiments being done on the civilians, and slowly uncover that the Alpha Sections aren't just failing to protect people, they're actively selling them out to the DOMs. What's remarkable is how Jade's camera evolves from a tool to a symbol. At first, it's just a job: photograph wildlife, collect data, get paid. But as the Iris movement grows, her images start appearing on wall-sized, holographic screens across the city centre. The screens in the shop windows flash her photos of Alpha Section's atrocities. And her shots become protests, memorials, and a call to action. By the time she's racing through DOMS-infested corridors to rescue Pey'j, she's no longer just a girl with a staff. She's a rallying point, the face of a resistance built from rolls of film. And here's the thing, the plot works because it never goes full grimdark. Yes, people are being harvested by alien parasites. Yes, your uncle gets kidnapped and nearly converted into a zombie slave. But, all that aside, there's still warmth and humour underneath everything. Still moments of real humanity, even when the world seems to be falling apart.
Congratulations, Miss Jade, you have...
Hold it. I got a bone to pick with your boss.
Mr. de Castellac never really existed. I think I owe you some explanations, Miss Jade.
Brother, what the fuck?
All I know is that in another 10 minutes, I was a goner. I owe you my life.
Hence, You can count on me, Miss Virus.
Jade. My name is Jade.
At your service, Miss Jade Virus!
The story escalates slowly but surely, pulling you deeper into conspiracies and personal stakes. You learn that Jade's own origin might not be what she once believed, that the world she's fighting for may not be as clean as she hoped, and that sometimes being a hero just means having the guts to show people what's really going on. It all comes to a tipping point as the orphans that Jade and pey'j once looked after are kidnapped by the Alpha sections and the Doms, forcing Jade to face off against the Dom's priest, a giant alien hive mind leader stationed on a secret temple on the moon. The boss fight is actually kind of interesting, albeit frustrating, with some of the boss's mechanics even inverting and reversing your controls, and having you memorize attack patterns over and over. Being the natural gamer that I am, I really didn't struggle with this part.
No! Fuck! Do I have to do that again? No! Dude! Fuck! I pressed it! You guys believe I got that first try?
You learn that Jade has strong connections to the Doms, be it from a past life or one thrust upon her by her family and friends, and is able to use those powers to defeat the emissary of the Doms, free the people of Hillis from their containment, and set us up for a very obvious continuation of the story and series. But unfortunately, we all know how that's panned out so far. Whether it's a bar full of anthropomorphic friends, a garage run by a rhino reggae band, or an emotional cutscene with nothing but soft lighting and silence, Beyond Good and Evil manages to hit emotional beats without ever feeling like it's trying too hard. Not the most complex plot in gaming history, but it is one of the most earnest, and that sincerity goes a long way. Beyond Good and Evil gave us a resistance fighter armed with a camera, a pig for an uncle, and just enough optimism to believe the truth could still matter. And all of that, the conspiracy, the stakes, the growing sense that something bigger is at play, wouldn't matter if the game didn't deliver in the moment to moment. Thankfully, Beyond Good and Evil is more than just a pretty narrative. Once you pick up the controller, the way you experience Jade's fight for the truth is every bit as memorable, for better and for worse. For all of Beyond Good and Evil's world building and character depth, its gameplay was surprisingly varied, and cohesive at that. It stitched together genres that don't typically play nice with each other, but somehow it all worked. Combat is probably the weakest link mechanically speaking, but it does its job. Jade fights using a staff, the dai-jo, with fluid, acrobatic swings and slightly different combo timing. You've got a single attack button, a dodge roll, and a charge move, which keeps things accessible and straightforward. It's not deep, and it never really tries to be, but it feels responsive, weighty, and importantly, it never overstays its welcome. Combat is the punctuation here, not the sentence. Jade's camera isn't just for side quests or collectibles either. It's central to the game. You use it to document alien life, collect evidence for the Resistance, and even uncover conspiracies hidden in plain sight. I would classify it as explorative journalism, and it gives the player a role that feels constructive to the world building and the story. This wasn't just about snapping photos for points. You were literally exposing lies, sending reports to underground networks, getting paid by the Science Center for it. It tied into the game's themes of truth, manipulation, and resistance better than any monologue ever could. And Jade's camera wasn't just a gimmick. According to the dev team, it was part of the original concept of the game, a way to fight with truth instead of bullets. That very philosophy ended up trickling through the entire game, and it was infinitely interesting because of it. The stealth mechanics are light but effective. There's nothing crazy involved with it, thankfully, just smart camera placement, basic AI patterns, and timed movement to deal with. You sneak past guards, hack terminals, and disable shields. Nothing really revolutionary, but it's all sold by the stakes. You're not sneaking for XP, you're sneaking for evidence. Some levels even blend stealth and photography directly, hiding behind crates to snap shots of alien experiments. Then there's the hovercraft. I remember getting giddy after I unlocked this bad boy when I was younger, back when hovercrafts were all the rage and invading every neuron of my developing teenage boy brain as the new cool thing. Jade and pey'j use this baby to get around Hillis, and it's easily one of the best parts of the game. The controls are slick, the physics just floaty enough, and the world design makes exploration feel worthwhile. You'll hunt for bonus loot, photograph wildlife, enter some races, and even upgrade the vehicle with missiles and eventually an interplanetary spaceship. And while the world of Hillis isn't technically open world by modern standards, it feels open, thanks to clever level gating and seamless transitions between the core locations. Visually, the game's a collage of different styles and genres. You'll go from vibrant cities to grungy underground warehouses and to cave sections that look like you've taken one too many hits of the Rhino Spliff and gone for a swim.
Gee, get a load of that!
This variety isn't just for show. Each area tells a story through design. The bright, welcoming tones of the open world of Hillis make you feel safe and grounded, while the cold, sharp areas of the Alpha Section's facilities feel oppressive and clinical. Even the DOM's environments have a grotesque, organic texture, making them feel alive and deeply disturbing. It gives the world a rhythm that keeps pulling you forward, curious about what's around the next corner. It should be noted that the footage you're seeing in this video is from the 20th anniversary edition that I played on stream. It runs smoother, looks sharper, and honestly does justice to the original vision. The updated textures and lighting effects breathe new life into the environments. If you prefer the original release or want to experience the original, there are still more than enough ways to enjoy it. The community has created patches and mods to improve performance, clean up visuals, and make the game more playable on modern machines. Both of these versions thankfully capture what made this world special in the first place. The Anniversary Edition does use the Ubisoft launcher though, which is complete dog shit, and there's no reason for the achievements and notifications to pop up every 2 minutes and take up half the screen. Just keep that in mind if you wanted to go down that route. With everything it had going for it, the ideas, the execution, the soul, Beyond Good and Evil should have been a hit, but when it launched in late 2003, something went very wrong. Despite glowing reviews, seriously 9 out of 10s everywhere, the game tanked commercially. Why is that? Well, it's most commonly attributed to these 3 things. It released alongside Prince of Persia: Sands of Time from the exact same publisher. As I mentioned before, it had nearly zero marketing push due to executives and Ubisoft not knowing how the game was going to perform with audiences. And honestly, most people didn't know what the hell it was or what it was trying to do. It ended up quietly slipping into discount bins, but fans dug in, just as resilient as Jade was. Remasters ended up hitting in 2011 on Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network, and by 2024, Ubisoft released the 20th Anniversary Edition, cementing the game's status as a cult legend. Over time, Beyond Good and Evil earned a second life, and became one of gaming's most beloved cult classics. Which brings us to the sequel, or at least what was supposed to be the sequel. If I had one! Because if the first game's journey was rocky, the road to Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been straight up cursed. You guys remember Beyond Good and Evil 2, right? Right, guys? It's definitely a thing, right?
Fucking bastard! Grab my chassis, Noxie!
First teased in 2008, Beyond Good and Evil 2 was re-revealed in 2017 with an E3 trailer showcasing planets, solar system travel, and a space pirate fantasy. Then, well, complete chaos. Ansel later revealed the sequel became engulfed in creative and managerial conflict. In his own words, passion is a fabulous energy, but it can also lead to clashes between enthusiasts. On Beyond Good and Evil 2, for example, there were too many problems between managers. He called out the art director, the game director, and even himself. The art director wanted to redo everything over and over again. The game director wanted to make a generated dungeon game, and I dreamed of a space adventure. Ansel even admitted his own regrets. I have my share of responsibility and I should have defended the project better, been more present and more conciliatory with the staff. Despite internal fallout, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot reportedly visited the Montpellier studio personally to mediate, but it ultimately wasn't enough to avoid derailment. As of 2025, development's still ongoing in fits and starts, now helmed by a new creative director but still with no release date. The sequel remains legendary in its rumour-filled limbo, and that's where we are now, a legacy built on passion and perseverance, and a sequel still lost in the stars. So here's the thing. Beyond Good and Evil might have flopped commercially in 2003, but it never really died. It's a game that dared to be political, emotional, and mechanically weird, and actually pulled it off surprisingly well. It's not perfect by any sense of the word, but it wants you to feel something. And now, over 20 years later, it feels more relevant than ever. If you've never played Beyond Good and Evil, the 20th Anniversary Edition is the perfect excuse to do so. And if you have, maybe it's time to revisit Hillis and experience all the love and passion it has to offer in the modern day. Just don't hold your breath for Beyond Good and Evil 2. But hey, if it does ever drop, we'll be ready, cameras in hand. Thanks for watching, everyone. I have a ton of fun making these videos, so I appreciate all the support you've given me. I'm sorry they take so long, but editing is a bitch. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for more content just like this. And if you like this video, make sure to check out my retrospective on Heavy Metal Fact 2, another cult classic that deserved way more love than it got when it first released.